Let's do it, everybody. Welcome. I decided to throw the unredacted tonight background up there because you know what? Screw it. This is a big show. We got to go big or go home. Hello, everybody. I got a lot for you today. A lot of stories we're going to be covering. Many of them, I don't know why, related to the genocide that the U.S. and Israel are committing. I don't know why. I focus on that instead of all the great football games that have been going on. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this lovely Monday. Let's get right into the fact that the largest flotilla, this is not one boat this time. This is like 50 boats are headed to Gaza, and it's pretty incredible. I continue to talk about the bravery of these groups. Here's a little bit of video of their send-off yesterday, I believe it was. Yeah, largest flotilla, 50 plus ships, 44 countries represented, leaving from Barcelona, headed to Gaza. No one really knows how Israel will react with each one of these boats that is headed towards Gaza, even though it should be under international law for any ship that has the approval of Gaza to go to Gaza. Instead, Israel has been, of course, boarding these ships and arresting the people on them. It should be against international law, should be illegal, but Israel doesn't give a shit. And Israel has murdered people on these flotilla boats before. But let's see a little from a few of the people that are on these boats.
I'm Liam Cunningham. We are in the beautiful city of Barcelona, and what you're looking at in the background is a small portion of the flotilla that is heading to Gaza to break the Israeli medieval siege. We are part of the Irish delegation, and Caoimhe, the wonderful Caoimhe Butterly, and the wonderful Ty Kiki are here, and Caoimhe will tell you about one of our boats.
So one of our boats is a legal support boat. It is constituted of international human rights lawyers and genocide scholars. And the aim of the legal support boat is to really frame this flotilla in international humanitarian law, to say in the absence of governmental action that citizens from across the world are upholding international law. And we've been given the blessing of the family of Shireen Abu Akleh, the brave and beautiful assassinated Palestinian journalist, to name our boat in her honor.
So there's one of the boats, and Liam Cunningham, of course, well known from Game of Thrones, which so every word he says just comes soaked in that Game of Thrones gravitas, which I think is really important. But yeah, there's going to be an entire legal support boat that will be monitoring everything. That doesn't mean Israel will act any more legally. I can tell you that much. But anyone who wants to make fun of this, as I've said previously with the Gaza flotilla, and I recently interviewed Chris Smalls, who was on the last flotilla. As I've said previously, the courage of these people is pretty unbelievable, considering Israel has sent paratroopers onto these boats before and murdered, I believe it was 9 of the people on board, just shooting indiscriminately at unarmed people. Israel has done that. That was way back in, I think, 2012, but many years ago. However, more recently, they've arrested these people, and there's no clear sign that Israel will every time let the people leave rather than just imprisoning them long term, especially if they come from a country that has a little less power than, say, the United States or something. There's really no guarantee they won't stick you in jail forever. Israel has also bombed one of these ships, and that was more recent. That was just a few months ago that Israel had drones bomb one of these ships, causing it it would have sunk, I think, if it hadn't been towed to port. Probably would have sunk eventually. But yeah, nobody got hurt, but they didn't know no one was going to get hurt when they bombed that ship. So this is what these people are facing. And you have 50 plus ships full of people headed to Gaza to try and raise awareness, raise attention to this cause. and you know, I think everybody should do what they can, and this is another incredibly brave move. So anyone who wants to call it something else, well, you fucking go. Go somewhere where where Israel regularly murders the people on board. I want to see you on there. See you sign up for that shit. Let me see you. No. Seriously. Have you signed up for that? Get on a boat that Israel regularly murders people on? Because I don't think I've seen you there. So people, you know, the sack of shit, it's right-wingers, but it's also just idiots like to make fun of these people because they, you know, I'm not saying that what they're doing in Gaza is right, but these people are so dumb getting on the boats. What? It's been almost 2 years of genocide. At what point do you, what else can we do? People are trying all kinds of shit. People lit themselves on fire. People have murdered themselves by lighting themselves on fire. Like, it's throwing all the shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. I got several videos for you on this episode. I wanted to do you know, I go back and forth. Sometimes I want to bring you more in-depth articles. Sometimes I want to bring you videos. I hope you guys are okay with that. I like to spice things up, change it up. And yeah, that's why I got a bunch of videos for you today. Change it up a little bit. Please click thumbs up, click subscribe, and throw in a comment. Even if you got nothing to say, it helps. It does help. So let's see a little clip of Tom Morello from, you probably, if you don't know him, you should, from Rage Against the Machine. He does a lot of his own solo stuff now. And I was on a show with him back during Occupy Wall Street. He was very important in supporting Occupy Wall Street. And anyway, I was on a show with him. Yeah, I always love when these, you know, the posters for like shows like that it'd be like, you know, list all the people on the Occupy Wall Street show. And then it'd say like Lee Camp and Tom Morello. You know, when I get near equal billing as Tom Morello, I'm like, you guys don't really understand. You know, it's not really. It doesn't really work that way. But anyway, yeah, I was on a show with him and hung out with him a little bit afterwards. But that is my only interaction with Tom Morello. However, here he is talking about Israel.
Terrorists. What is terroristic?
Oh, yeah. So because Instagram sucks giant putrid balls, it's almost impossible to click on this video and actually hear the first word. So the first, he said he's talking about Kneecap, the Irish band that has been standing up for Palestine, and they've had a bunch of their shows canceled and shit because they stand up for Palestine. God forbid you stand up against genocide. And anyway, so Tom Morello says Kneecap is not the terrorist. Terrorism is,
you know, 20,000 dead Palestinian children. Yeah. That's the story.
Bombing hospitals.
Exactly. But yeah, that's the story. Not, I mean, some Irish rappers who don't like that's happening should not be. It's unique because there is a phenomenon called progressive accept Palestine.
Right.
And people who, you know, I've been aligned with on every issue, up and down, every corner of the globe, every corner of the United States until it comes to this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I try to be open-hearted about it and recognize that there is this kind of historical trauma in the Jewish community where they feel, you know, fear and like we're not an unfounded.
Anti-Semitism is real.
Anti-Semitism is totally real,
Yeah.
you know, and so are war crimes against children.
Yeah.
And by the way, Tom Morello's absolutely right that progressive, and you guys probably know it as well, progressive accept on Palestine is a very real thing. There are a lot of progressives across this country who, the moment you bring up Israel, it's like they are completely blind to anything they acted like they stood for. And it always I feel like it's changing a little bit because of this genocide. You see people that were actually progressive, that were actually maybe even left wing, realizing, oh, you know, I should stand for those same values when it comes to Gazans, when it comes to those in the West Bank, when it comes to any of the victims of this horrific, blood-stained, fucking vampiric, parasitic shit stain of Israel. I should stand for those same things. Like I said, I think a lot of it is shifting right now during this genocide. Israel is doing that to themselves. But prior to this genocide, it was so common to have people progressive on just about every goddamn issue. You could go down the line and check, progressive. And then you get to Israel and they're like, well, those people that are standing around Israel, they shouldn't be less white than Israelis. It's really offensive that they're there. And, children are terrorists in that regard. But outside of that, I'm progressive. So he's right. That really exists.
Like I can parse that out, and support the Jewish community when anti-Semitism comes after them, and support Palestinians when they're being bombed into oblivion by war criminals.
Right.
To me, that seems like, but as a musician, there's a higher price to pay for standing up on this issue than anything else.
Yeah.
Anything else. How many countries have we bombed in the last 10 years? Like it is a failed state of aggressive daily war crime committing or funding country that cannot feed its own people and is now abducting that as mass agents of the state, abducting them and pulling kids out of schools. Kneecap.
There you go. You got that first word at the end of the video. Oh my God, Instagram is just the best. Look, I make a lot of fun of Instagram, but their one programmer works very hard. Okay. That guy they have working on fixing up Instagram and making it the best it can be for their billions of users. He's a hard worker. Okay. So I will not stand here while anyone insults that guy. I think his name is Clint. I will not stand here while people go after Clint. Okay. Anyway, all great points on that front coming from Tom Morello, and he talked about how there's a bigger price to pay on this issue for musicians than any other. And of course, Roger Waters also been excellent about it. An amazing musician, my personal favorite musician, Eleanor Goldfield's been awesome on standing up against this genocide. So yeah, they're out there, but he's right. There's a higher price to pay. And even prior to this genocide, Roger Waters, despite being the biggest, one of the most massive musicians in the world, had basically the funders of his concerts, which was like, Citibank or something, because, Bank of America, when you're doing concerts to giant stadiums, you've got to get these big banks to fund the whole process and everything, loan the money, and then they want their cut and everything. But they pulled out because he was called anti-Semitic, and basically Israel went to Bank of America and said, there's no reason you should be supporting Roger Waters because he's anti-Semitic. Anyway, that kind of garbage goes on all the time. So, but at least Tom Morello, good on that topic. Let's hear some good news. I want to bring you some, the Flotilla is good news as well, although we all wonder how that's going to end up. But here's some good news about Israel. This is young people in Israel burning their IDF draft cards or whatever. I don't think they're called draft cards in the IDF, but burning their draft papers.
In one sentence, why should people refuse to serve in the Israeli army?
Because there's a genocide and you don't enlist into an army that's committing a genocide.
In one sentence, why should people refuse to serve in the Israeli army?
The IDF is continuing to behave the same way it's behaved since Israel's founding, which is furthering horrible death and violence and a circle of blood for everyone.
Because the Jewish state that trying to present me wanna exterminate the people of Gaza. We can't be silent. Never again is now for everyone.
Because it is committing genocide and it's not helping not Jews and not Palestinians. We're all in danger because of the Israeli army.
So beautiful to see people standing up in Israel because they are so outnumbered. I mean, it's like 82% or something want to complete the ethnic cleansing of Gaza in Israel. 72% believe there are no innocent people in Gaza, meaning children as well. It's so they are clearly outnumbered, but they do exist, those who are legitimately resisting the genocide. And I don't mean, there's been protests in Israel with hundreds of thousands of people just recently, just I think this weekend. But I think the vast majority of those in those protests are actually getting the Netanyahu government out of power. It's not actually, they don't actually care whether the ethnic cleansing is completed. So these people are different. These are ones saying, do not, quote unquote, serve in the IDF. Do not join the IDF. And it is illegal, unlike the United States. Well, in the United States, it's technically illegal not to submit your service registry or whatever. But in Israel, everyone has to be in the military for, I believe, 2 years. And every single person, unless you're ultra Orthodox, although that's changing too. But and if you don't, you go to jail. Like they're apparently, whereas in the U.S., I don't think the U.S. recently has imprisoned anyone for not signing the little service registry card when they turn 18. They keep track of those people, but I don't think they've put anyone in jail recently. Whereas in Israel, they will legitimately put you in military prison for not, quote unquote, serving in the military, for not being a part of the genocide. So all these people right here burning their cards and refusing to go, they very well could end up in prison. And again, the courage required is a lot to risk prison time, and it's highly likely. I spoke to I interviewed, it was a while back now, this is way prior to the genocide, an Israeli whose children, he's a resistor of the IDF, resistor of Israel's policies, lives on a kibbutz in Israel, and his children refused to be in the IDF. One of them fled the country, or maybe they both fled the country. But anyway, the Israeli military was looking for them to imprison them. Like, it is very common for the Israeli military to imprison those who do not join and remain active in the Israeli military. So it's basically, be a part of this genocide or you're going to jail. And so it really is great to see people protesting, burning their cards, and not just simply refusing to be a part of this genocide. And never again is never. I've said this before. I said this, on October 10th or something, that I grew up hearing never again all the time. I think as a Jew growing up, you hear that a lot. Never once did I ever hear anybody, a rabbi, a teacher, anyone say, never again, only for Jews. Never again, only for us. No, the idea was no genocide ever again. That at least was what was taught in my world. And that's right now. That's right now, because that's what Israel's doing. So Trump has come out, if he's still alive. Trump has come. Have you seen those conspiracy theories floating around that Trump died and they're covering for him? He apparently has been somewhat missing for a week, but it's probably because, his hands are all bruised and nasty. His legs are all overgrown with like chicken McNuggets coming out of them. So, he probably is sick. He's probably got skin flaking off, and they were like, let's just, hide him for a little bit. But anyway, so he hasn't been seen for like a week. And so people are saying he's dead. I don't think that's true. I think he probably just has a giant bruise on his hand or forehead or whatever, because when the chicken McNugget sauce doesn't go down right, sometimes it'll just come up right below the skin layer, and you'll have like the sauce, right, whatever that barbecue McDonald's sauce is, just kind of right underneath the top skin layer, and people can see that. They can see that from a distance. They go, that's chicken McNugget sauce. And so you got to hide a guy like that. You really do. Let that pass. Anyway, but Trump has revealed his, or at least it's been leaked, but I think if it's been leaked, they leaked it intentionally, his Gaza post-war plan that envisions voluntary ethnic cleansing. Would you like to ethnically cleanse yourself? That would be excellent for us. relocation of the entire population. And this isn't much different from back when he reposted the video of Gaza being a Riviera, a new casino world with giant golden towers. It's pretty much the same plan. We get all the Palestinians to leave, and then we dump loads of American money. You can't have health care. You can't have child care. You can't have, food stamps. You can't. Our poor in our country are going to keep dying. No one owns a house. You just got to rent, and you can't even barely afford that. But we're going to dump billions of dollars into building big, shining hotels and casinos in Gaza after we get all the Palestinians to leave, the ones that Israel hasn't already killed. A post-war plan for Gaza circulating within the Trump administration, modeled on Trump's vow to take over the enclave, would turn it into a trusteeship administered by the United States. Two words you love to see in a sentence together: trust and United States. Those, anytime you see those in the same sentence, you can be sure things are going well, they're going good, and everyone is taken care of. The trusteeship administered by the U.S. for at least 10 years. 10 years of trust. When was the last deal that was 10 years long that the U.S. stuck by for 10 full years? I can't even recall. At least 10 years, while it's transformed into a gleaming tourism resort, because everyone loves to tour genocide camps. Everyone loves to just go see. That's actually true. Auschwitz does pretty well. But pretty much every Jewish person in the United States I know has gone to see Auschwitz at some point. You do not want to forget that history because you reenact it. Oh, turns out even when you remember it, you reenact it. At least if you're Israeli. Holy shit. Anyway, a gleaming tourism resort and a high-tech manufacturing and technology hub. There is obviously a big difference in the types of tourism. There is the type where it is a museum to genocide to remind everyone about it, and the type of tourism where it's like, we killed all these people and we put up a giant casino and you can go there now. Very different things. The 38-page prospectus seen by, I'm going to take a wild guess, that 38 pages was written by ChatGPT. ChatGPT, please give me plan for after genocide complete. Sure, I'd love to. That's a great idea you had there. The 38-page prospectus seen by Washington Post envisions at least a temporary relocation of all of Gaza's more than 2 million population, either through what it calls voluntary. Listen, when you fucking genocide of people, nothing is voluntary. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't want to get out. If I lived there and I was trying to take care of my family, I'd probably want to be anywhere where it was likely my family would be able to survive. That's not called voluntary. That's called you were going to murder them. If someone comes into your house or apartment and says, I'm going to hold this gun on you, I'm going to kill a couple of your family members, I'm going to kill your dog, I'll knock your house down, and you'll be sitting next to it. And then I'll say, would you like to leave this area? Would you like to voluntarily move somewhere else? So the 2 million people would, which is less than 2 million now after the 400,000 that Israel has killed with bombs, disease, and famine, would either leave through voluntary departures to another country or into restricted, secured zones inside the enclave during reconstruction. And what do you think those restricted, secured zones would look like? Oh, they'd look like smaller Gazas. It would basically be the same thing again, except smaller. Those who own land would be offered a digital token by the trust that the U.S. would create in exchange for rights to redevelop their property after we've bombed the living shit out of it, to be used to finance a new life elsewhere, or eventually redeem for an apartment in one of the 6 to 8 new AI-powered smart cities. I don't know if you call anything a smart city after you've committed genocide. None of that is smart. It's barbaric, sick, and fucked. Call it that. AI-powered, barbaric, sick, fuck cities. To be built in Gaza, each Palestinian who chooses to leave would be given $5,000 cash payment and subsidies to cover 4 years of rent elsewhere, as well as a year of food. The plan estimates, they're going to give them food if they leave. Not now, but if they leave. The plan estimates that every individual departure from Gaza would save the trust $23,000 compared with the cost of temporary housing and what it calls life support services. Yeah, I really trust the U.S. and Israel to give these people life support services. Called the Gaza Reconstitution, Economic Acceleration and Transformation Trust, or Great Trust. Oh my God. It's the dumbest simulation ever. Oh, is there a smarter one that could insert us into? So fucking stupid. It's called the Great Trust. The proposal was developed by some of the same Israelis who created and set in motion the U.S. and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, now distributing food inside the enclave. And says as the Washington Post, they're neglecting to tell you that the GHF is made up of mercenaries, mainly U.S. mercenaries, that have been murdering plenty of the Palestinians as they so-called deliver aid. On Wednesday, Trump held a White House meeting to discuss ideas for how to end the war, now approaching the 2-year mark and what comes next. Participants included Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and Steve Witkoff, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, who has a lot of experience in utterly destroying and murdering hundreds of thousands of people, such as Iraq. You may know him from such mass murder sprees as Iraq, whose views on Gaza's future have been solicited by the administration, and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who handled the President Trump's first-term initiatives in the Middle East that all went great. I don't know if you can remember. Everything was fine in the Middle East because Kushner figured it out and has extensive private interests in the region. Kushner gets very rich if Gaza is, he's already very rich, but he gets richer if Gaza is turned into this gleaming casino on the hill or whatever on the beachfront that they want to do. So this is a great money, windfall for Kushner. And so why not include him in the conversation? Because Trump has never technically figured out what the words conflict of interest mean. So why not bring Kushner in to help figure this out? Oh, God. These people are so psychotic. So this is the new plan, is they're going to give Gaza to the United States in a trust. And all the people are going to be paid to complete their own ethnic cleansing. Holy shit. Well, as a palate cleanser from that, let's go to, this was a meeting in the Hamptons. So these are rich fucks in a meeting with an Israeli general, as in general in the IDF, who has basically come to talk to American Zionist Jews, which is different than just Jews, right? Because Zionism and Judaism are two separate things. I know, shocking. There's more Christian Zionists in America than there are Jews in the world. The more you know. But to offer Zionists a way to support Israel as they commit genocide. And luckily, there were some protesters on hand.
Very few of us in this room will probably end up enlisting, but what can American Jews be doing in order to support Israel at the moment?
As a Jewish Long Islander, and in the name of my ancestors who were murdered by the Nazis, I demand an end to Israel's genocide against Palestinians. Never again is for everyone. Whoa. I am disgusted to have this war criminal from the IDF here in our community. He is a monster. You're not welcome here.
Stop the genocide! Free! Free Palestine! Stop!
Did you hear that one? Did you hear the Karen sitting next to them who goes, "What the fuck is wrong with you guys? Really? You mean what is right with them? What the hell is wrong with you that you're sitting in this room to hear an IDF general talk about how to commit genocide? Holy shit. What's wrong with them? Wow."
Genocide! Free! Free Palestine! Stop the genocide! We are not Jewish values!
We here are embodying Jewish values by resisting genocide, by resisting the killing of children, by saying never again to anyone,
by saying never again!
Anyway, good for them for interrupting that idiot speech in the Hamptons. It's just amazing to hear the people in the audience like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? Why would you interrupt the nice general man, the IDF man? Why would you try to stop him from talking? I do not understand why you would do that. Holy shit. Maybe when you're on the side of genocide, you start to question what you've come to believe, what you become, you know? All right, I want to go now to a clip of Jeremy Scahill, the journalist, talking about the murder of, let's see, I'm going to restart it there. The murder of journalists in Gaza and what it says about journalists here in the United States.
Of your colleagues if you stood silent, or if you in any way gave justification to the dehumanization propaganda agenda that leads to the murder of some of the greatest journalistic heroes in modern history. To dignify Israel's claims about these journalists is so reprehensible and disgusting that it makes the New York Times a party to establishing the conditions, both before and after the fact, that lead to our Palestinian colleagues being murdered. I mean, this is what it is. They are murdering in record numbers journalists in the context of a mass murder campaign embedded within a genocide that is shredding children every day, that is setting tents on fire every day, that is intentionally starving people every day, that is engaged in a totally fake so-called aid distribution that also includes dropping massive heavy boxes from the sky that are crushing Palestinians. And all of this began with the lie factory that was set into production before October 7th, but then put onto an industrial scale after October 7th. Beheaded babies, total lie. Mass rapes, total lie. Constant dehumanization of Palestinians. Constant lying about what happened on October 7th. And then the news organizations and the prominent journalists fall into two basic categories. Either they're totally silent and say nothing, or they're part of the problem. You are part of the murder of your colleagues if you stood silent, or if you in any way gave justification to the dehumanization propaganda agenda that leads to the murder of some of the greatest journalistic heroes in modern history.
Well said and very true. And yeah, the New York Times has plenty of this blood on its hands, as does the Washington Post and so many others. And I actually did a segment on this last Unredacted Tonight. If you didn't catch it, the second segment of the show was the connections between many prominent higher ups and well-known columnists at the New York Times with Israel. The extremely tight connections. Many of these columnists and executives at the New York Times some of them were in the IDF, some of them had children in the IDF, some of them other connections to Israel. And if you want to see that segment and learn about all those connections between the New York Times and Israel, and of course, conflict of interest when you're trying to cover a genocide and you don't, reveal the truth, but then your son or daughter is in the IDF, is one of the war criminals. Well, boy, that sounds like a slight conflict of interest. That is, you can watch that episode at leecamp.com/unredacted. We'll take you to the full YouTube playlist. I think I'm going to show a clip. If I have time, I'm going to show a clip of the last episode at the very end of this show, but I'm not going to show the clip from the New York Times segment. So if you want that one, that's the second segment. The first segment is about climate crisis and Joe Rogan. Anyway, I'm glad Scahill continues to speak out about that. Remember, everybody, to support this show by joining up at leecamp.net. Become a member on Locals and throw in a little solidarity. It's a whopping 38 cents an episode, $6 a month, and it really does make a difference. And it's the only way I'm able to keep doing this work. So I hope you'll do that, leecamp.net. or patreon.com/leadcamp. All right. Well, I want to cover some of the economics of Israel's economy, how they're able to even stay in business, as the terminology would be, considering their economy is collapsing, but they're still going. And this article from antiwar.com is about how the U.S. funding sustains an unraveling Israeli economy. Norway's, I've covered this before, but Norway's sovereign wealth fund is the world's largest, with total investments in Israel once estimated at $1.9 billion. But they've decided they are withdrawing their money from Israel. According to its reports from the Israeli Ministry of Finance, foreign direct investments in Israel fell by an estimated 28% in the first half of 2024 compared to the same period in 2023. And that's according to Israel. So that's probably an understatement. They're probably lying to make it look not as bad as it is. Any supposed recovery in foreign investments, however, was deceptive. It was not the outcome of the global rallying to save Israel, but rather a consequence of a torrent of U.S. funds pouring in to help Israel sustain both its economy and the genocide in Gaza, along with its other war fronts. Citing reports from the Bank of Israel and the Ministry of Finance, the Israeli business newspaper Calculist reported in January 2025 the cost of the Israeli war had already reached more than $67 billion. That figure represented the cost of war up to the end of 2024. With other consequences of the war, including divestments from the Israeli market by Norway and other countries, future projections for the Israeli economy look very grim. And this isn't even getting into all of the people just boycotting Israeli products. And of course, that is having a major impact. Those boycotting the products around the world, 1 in 3 people around the world are boycotting something connected to Israel. The Israeli Central Bureau of Statistics reported that the Israeli economy, already in a constant state of contraction, shrunk by another 3.5% between April and June 2025. This collapse is projected to continue even with the unprecedented U.S. financial backing of Tel Aviv. Though the U.S. has always propped up Israel with nearly $4 billion in aid every goddamn year, the U.S. help for Israel in the last 2 years was the most generous and critical yet. Equally, if not more valuable than this large sum, are the loan guarantees, which allow Israel to borrow money at a much lower interest rate on the global market. The backing of the U.S. has therefore enabled investors to view the Israeli market as a safe haven for their funds, often guaranteeing high returns. I had not realized that that was an aspect of why people invest in Israel. While much of the money was earmarked for defense expenditures, in reality, most of the, this is the $26.4 billion from the U.S. Earmarked for Israel in April 2024. In reality, most of it will percolate into the Israeli economy. This amount, in addition to the annual military aid, allows the Israeli government to minimize spending on defense and allocate more money to help the economy from shrinking at an even faster rate. $26.4 billion, on average $40 billion sent to Israel every year. But yeah, we don't have money for the healthcare in the United States. We don't have money for affordable housing. We don't have money to help fix our schools in the United States. No, but we got $40 billion to send to Israel to commit genocide. All of this should not diminish the importance of investment from the Israeli financial system. On the contrary, it means that divestment efforts must increase significantly to balance out the U.S. push to keep the Israeli economy from imploding. It's been pretty much on the cusp of imploding since October 2023. And this article has nothing to do, is not talking about the hundreds of thousands that have fled Israel because they have dual citizenship and they don't want to be there during a genocide. The thousands of the high-tech workers that have left, the money that is just not getting invested in Israel that would have been invested there if they weren't committing genocide. But there it is. How exactly the United States is propping up the Israeli economy through all of this. Okay, let's actually talk about something other than Israel for a minute. Here is the price tag of Trump's fascist takeover of Washington, D.C. $1 million a day to have the National Guard wandering around Washington, D.C., even though, as I covered in an earlier episode, many of them are like raking mulch and picking up trash because there's not actually that much crime in D.C. Violent crimes at a 30-year low, with the exception of a few certain neighborhoods. There's not that much crime at all. I lived there for 8 years, and I wasn't in the poorest parts of DC, but I also wasn't in the rich parts of DC at all. And yet, never saw any crime, never witnessed any crime, I was part of crime. I had a bit of an industry. Look, I'm not proud of it now, but we'd trick homeless people into signing something, and then we'd steal their organs and sell them on the black market. It's not a career path I recommend, but and I only did that for like 3-4 years, I think, while I was hosting a TV show. I'm a multitasker, okay? But anyway, so the National Guard, $1 million a day, while we can't afford, quote unquote, can't afford, it's bullshit, but quote unquote, can't afford to give kids school lunches or to pay for daycare for every fucking body across this country or to pay for health care for everybody across this country. I posted online the other day, I got an email from my health insurance saying, we don't know what the rates will be next year. Basically, the rates are going to change. They're going to shoot up because of, plenty of reasons. One is just because we feel like making more money. That's why our rates are going to shoot up. But also because Trump is cutting off certain, benefits and things. But the email to me said, your rates very well going up, probably definitely going up next year. So now is a great time to get your health care in 2025 before they go up. Think about that logically. Predict what problems you're going to have in 2026 and just get those taken care of now, because next year you're going to be fucked. So just if you're planning on a broken leg in 2026, just get that broken leg. I realize it's not broken yet, but get them to put some extra screws in now so you can be ready for that broken leg you will have in 2026. Not only are we the only country with this garbage system, we're the only country where they're sending out emails. Hey, go grab some health care now because you are fucked next year. Anyway, don't have money for that, but we got $1 million a day. Trump thinks Trump says $1 million a day to have the National Guard wandering around Washington, D.C., doing nothing except harassing people. Of course, the real reason he's doing this is as a show of force and as a test balloon. He wants to see if he is able to get away with having military force in every city. DC is one of the easiest ones to get away with because it's not technically independent. It's technically part of the federal government. So therefore, he doesn't really have to. I don't know if you know this. DC technically has a senator and like representatives in the House, or maybe it's just a senator, but they have no voting power. And the people will run for DC senator just to sit in an office with no voting power. It's a real thing. They'll spend $1 million on an election campaign to win an office seat with no power. It's pretty unbelievable. I think they just like sitting in a desk. They're like, wait, how big is that desk? Okay, I'll spend $1 million on that. Anyway, Trump has turned DC into a police state. Already a police state. It was a police state before. The United States is a police state. The United States has, more cops wandering around than most countries. And of course, their sole purpose is to protect the property of the rich and then, to be a fascist force in case of protests or people getting uppity, people standing up for things. That's another reason. Here's some video of DC residents not putting up with it. Good for them. Basically, this is DEA police, because by the way, there's like 40 or some different agencies all wandering around DC harassing people. It is more quote unquote law enforcement than like anywhere in America. And these people notice the DEA police. It says DEA police on their vest, whatever the fuck that is. And they noticed them harassing a guy, so they intervened.
Have to say anything to these folks. You have the right to not say anything to them.
What's up, bro? You okay?
Yeah, I'm alright. I'm not from here, but I mean, I am up here trying to.
You gotta explain yourself to them.
Right, I get that. I need someone else.
You can chill. You can enjoy your time right here, but you can laugh.
You're just hanging out here. We're just making sure that nothing else happens. Of course, I'm not going anywhere. So we're all going to be out here. It's going to be a long night. I get shit to do. But like, what are you out here doing though? Like, what are you helping with by standing in this plaza right now? Like, in what way is what you're doing right now helpful?
You want an answer?
Yeah, I do.
It's called community policing.
Okay, you're with the DEA? So you're arresting people for what? Having like a J on them? Like,
we're not arresting anybody.
Then why are you here?
We're preventing and deterring crime.
I don't think you're preventing anything. You guys show up after the crime has already happened, and then you go and do your little cleanup thing or talk with people afterward. So, like, we just... If he's okay with you talking to him, that's fine. But I'm just out here making sure that this doesn't change. The situation doesn't change.
Anyway, good for them for telling him that he doesn't have to answer them. A lot of people still think they have to speak to the police or they have to speak to the DEA police, whatever the hell that is. A lot of people think they're like obligated to. And of course, the truth is these are idiots with guns. So it's quite possible that when you don't speak to them, they may amp up their harassment of you. So it's understandable why people think that they have to speak to them. But unless you're under arrest, you don't there's no obligation that you have to speak to them. Even if you're under arrest, you should just keep saying lawyer. Even if you don't have a lawyer, they have to give you one. So you don't even have to speak to them if you're under arrest. But yeah, and good for these people to both have a camera on these idiots, these thugs, these brown shirts. To have a camera on them tends to heavily change their behavior. And to just inform people of their rights, that you don't have to tell them anything. I'm assuming this guy sitting at this public table, he's allowed to sit at this public table, but I'm assuming he's not having the easiest time if he's just sitting at a table in the middle of the night. And what's not going to help it is douchebags with guns inserting themselves into his life. Now, if we actually had, in some areas of the country do, but only a few, if we actually had legitimate mental health or people having a tough time, groups that came around and just said, hey, we noticed you're sitting here in the middle of the night. You don't seem to have a place to go. Is there a way we can help you? And those people would not have guns. They wouldn't arrest anyone. That would not be one of the things they do. And they would just see if there's a way they can help people. That would be a far better use of everyone's money and time and everything else. But instead, the U.S. pretends that, well, the fucking douchebags with guns. You know the bullies in high school? Remember those guys? Well, they all grew up, they got guns, and now they insert themselves into every situation. That's how we deal with anything. That's how we deal with, you're punctured a tire in your car. Well, send some douchebags with guns. Yeah, you know what you need some douchebags with guns. Oh, you fell over and got hurt. Well, we might send an EMT, but just in case, we'll send a couple of douchebags with guns with the EMT while he works on your leg. We'll have the guys with guns with him. You're hanging out at a club at midnight. Let's send some douchebags with guns. That's just in case. Oh, your neighbor's playing his music a little loud and you don't like it. Better call some douchebags with guns. Douchebags with guns could definitely fix this problem. I'm sure it's going to end up great for everyone. And, if they happen to, like, your neighbor had your music too loud and you tried to get him to turn it down, he didn't turn it down. These douchebags with guns, they might murder him. They might just lock him up, and maybe that'll create a spiral in his life that ends with him staying behind bars for 10, 20 years. And I think you'll feel pretty good about that. I think you'll be like, well, he did have his music a little loud. So sure, they killed him, which I didn't know they were going to do that when I called them, but I'm fine with it. I think, the music, you got to understand the type of music he was playing. It warranted capital punishment. Okay. It was like Backstreet Boys and shit. It was unbelievable. And it was loud. So yeah, I didn't know they were going to kill him, but I'm fine with it. I stand by the choice. Okay. Moving on, but still in the vein of Trump's totally unhinged, the Trump administration's totally unhinged behavior. Did you happen to catch that basically the Trump administration almost definitely, they haven't admitted it, but almost definitely has spies and agents provocateur in Iceland right now in order to try and continue to try and steal Iceland from Denmark. Sorry, Greenland. Did I say Iceland? Greenland from Denmark. Because Denmark has realized that there are people in Greenland, which doesn't have that many people, right? So you insert a few Americans, even if they're doing a Danish accent. I'm assuming most Greenlanders have a Danish accent. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's a greenish accent. But even if they're doing a fake accent, I think it's going to be pretty obvious with the 12 people that live in Iceland. If you've got a couple of idiots walking around going, hey, you know what we should do? We should rise up, create a revolution, get the U.S. to invade, and we can join the U.S. And I bet it'd be really awesome. Don't you think? Don't you think? But yes, Denmark has summoned the U.S. envoy over in claims of interference in Greenland. Denmark's foreign minister summoned the top U.S. diplomat to the country for talks after the main national broadcaster reported Wednesday that at least 3 people with connections to Trump have been carrying out covert influence operations in Greenland, in fucking Greenland. In a lengthy written statement, the U.S. State Department confirmed that the deputy chief of mission in Copenhagen had met with the Danish foreign ministry officials. It declined to comment on the actions of private U.S. citizens in Greenland. Yeah, private citizens. The U.S. government does not control or direct the actions of private citizens. We just happen to have 3 people connected to the Trump administration that happen to be visiting Greenland for a long time and happen to be wandering around from city to city, seeing how many people they can rouse up for a revolution against Denmark. I mean, oh my God, this is an SNL sketch right here. Hey, we should really should create a revolution against Denmark right now. Because look, they haven't been giving us our seal meat. All right, a lot of the best seal meat Denmark's been keeping for themselves, guys. And if you're with me, I don't think we should be talking about this publicly yet. But if you want to meet in the wine cellar, we can talk this over about how much seal meat Denmark's been stealing from us. Those fucking Danish bastards. But the U.S. government said they had a productive conversation, reaffirmed their strong ties among the government of Greenland, the United States, and Denmark. Trump has repeatedly said he seeks U.S. jurisdiction over Greenland, a vast semi-autonomous territory of Denmark. He has not ruled out military force to take control of the mineral-rich, strategically located Arctic island. And you'll recall that J.D. Vance went over to Greenland a few months ago to try and do he was going to do a grand, Trump administration tour of Greenland and meet all of his adoring fans. But the risk to his safety was so great that all he did was give a speech to like 12 people on the U.S. military base that's on Greenland. That's where they began and ended the tour. Because the 12 people that live in Greenland were like, we're going to fuck that chubby fella up. We are going to fuck around and see, J.D. Vance. Fuck around and see what happens here. All right. I have a trained pet walrus, so just back off. Anyway, it's good to know we're trying to create revolution in Greenland. All right, let's see here. I want to do at least one more story before I play a quick clip from the new Unredacted tonight. There'll be another new episode this coming Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I hope you will join up on Patreon or LeeCamp.net and support this show. But my buddy Alan McLeod does amazing writing for Mint Press. He just put out a new article on the pathetic, sad, pathetic fall of Russell Brand, and dug deep into not just he's not. This is not a deep dive into the accusations, because I think those have been well covered by the mainstream media. What hasn't been well covered by the mainstream media is Brand's ideological shift from a so-called, basically leftist or socialist, I don't know what he called himself, but somewhat revolutionary, at least saying there should be a revolution, saying there should be a redistribution of wealth, standing for Occupy Wall Street, standing for so many things that were good and just. And now he has become a far-right, climate change denying, giving fawning interviews to neo-Nazis like Steve Bannon. And it really is just evangelical, really is just a sack of shit these days. And a lot of it has to do with, he was doing the shift was already happening prior to his sexual assault allegations, but then it was like that provided turbo fuel to the shift to the far right. And part of the reason for that, and I've seen this happen to other comedians who shall remain unnamed, but basically once they were accused of sexual assault or rape or any type of sexual illegality, criminality, they run to the right wing, because right wing fans generally don't care if you are accused of sexual assault by multiple women. Their right wing fans are like, sure, why not? As far as I can tell. I haven't. Maybe you know one. I haven't seen a right winger who cares if people like this are accused of something. But whereas if you are a left winger, if you are progressive, if you are socialist, if you are any of those things, and a bunch of women come out and say this was done to me, generally progressives, left wingers, socialists, they don't really want to continue to listen to somebody who's a serial sexual assaulter or accused of it. Anyway, Alan McLeod says, not so long ago, Russell Brand was a socialist icon, preaching global revolution and redistribution of wealth and power to the masses. Today, he's a born-again Christian who endorses, he also, I think, used to claim Buddhism, and now he's born-again Christian who endorses Donald Trump and his headline events at the Republican National Convention and Turning Point USA, where once he preached eco-socialism, anti-racism, and described Israel as a terrorist state. He now attacks Greta Thunberg, Bob Villan, and other prominent Israel critics, all while hobnobbing with the same racist politicians he once warned the public not to follow. Russell Brand is a conservative star. Last month, the English comedian headlined the annual conference of the pro-Trump pressure group Turning Point USA. With his populist right-wing rhetoric, Brand is firmly aboard the Trump train. His podcast platform is a who's who of conservative influencers. He has on, and he doesn't have on and argue with them. He has on and has fawning conversations with Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and neo-Nazi Steve Bannon. In 2013, he edited a special edition of the New Statesman magazine. This is back when he was somewhat revolutionary to some degree, somewhat leftist. He entitled that a special edition of the New Statesman magazine titled Revolution. He then put out a book of the same name. He drew inspiration from leftist figures like Noam Chomsky, David Graeber, and Che Guevara. the height of his fame, he used his platform to urge the public to rebel, to boycott the electoral system, and to call for communist-style revolution. The planet is being destroyed. We are creating an underclass. We're exploiting poor people all over the world, and the genuine, legitimate problems of the people are not being addressed by our political class. That's who he used to be. And no more. On one episode, he described Fox News of his old show. He described Fox News as a terrorist network promoting pro-war fake news, an utterance that led network host Greg Gutfeld to label the comedian left-wing commie scum. By 2023, however, Gutfeld was gushing with pride and super excited to host Brand on his Fox News show, a marker of just how far Brand has traveled. And then Alan McLeod quotes some hack named Lee Camp. Alan came to me before he put out this article and asked me for a comment. And he says, Lee Camp, another left-wing comedian, political comedian, is dismayed at the, just to say the slightest, at Brand's metamorphosis. Lee said, Russell Brand's arc is truly pathetic and sad. These days, much of the time, his stances, if he has any, aren't even coherent. I remember when he was anti-war and pro-Occupy Wall Street. It was never his main thrust, but it was nice to have someone with his platform occasionally talking about those issues. Now he's moved on to having cozy interviews with neo-Nazis like Steve Bannon. Anyway, it's a great article. I think you should check it out if you have a chance, if you want to know the full gory details of the spiral of Russell Brand. And where is it? There's a, oh yeah, another quote from me, which I'll go ahead and read. According to, this is what I said to Alan McLeod. According to Media Matters, 82% of online media and commentary is right-wing or right-leaning. So that's where the biggest audience is. And yes, we've seen a similar shift, not always as severe, though, with other comedian commentators. Joe Rogan being one of the best known. In his earlier days, he supported Bernie Sanders and had on guests like me occasionally. Now he's endorsing Trump and having guests like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. Interviewing bigger, more sociopathic celebrities is where the golden clicks are. So this would be why I'm scrummaging for 38 cents an episode from you guys. And Joe Rogan has a deal with Spotify for like $200 million. Russell Brand has a deal with Rumble for like $1 million or several million. And yeah, we're in different worlds. Theirs is more profitable. Mine is, my soul feels better than I think theirs does. Anyway, this also is a good segue because the latest episode of Unredacted Tonight was, the first segment was about Joe Rogan and how incredibly and hilariously wrong he is on climate change, climate crisis. So I'm going to play a clip of that right now. I'm not going to come back on after the clip, but you can watch the full clip, the full show at leecamp.com/unredacted. So if you like what you see, I'll just play a few minutes. If you like what you see, then make sure you go over to leecamp.com/unredacted. That'll take you straight to the YouTube, and it'll show you the whole playlist of Unredacted Tonight, and you can find it there. It's the Joe Rogan episode, the climate change episode, should be towards the top, hopefully. And I'm putting the link there. In fact, let me see if I can put it just on the screen for you. Yeah, there it is. Okay, folks, I'm going to play the clip from Unredacted Tonight, and I hope you will support this show and check out the full episode of Unredacted Tonight. And I will see you Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, for, I believe it's going to be Government Secrets. Is next I'll see you. See you then. Keep fighting. Joe Rogan, schools, Bernie Sanders on climate change. Oh my God, this is going to be good. Climate change isn't real, and Rogan's going to choke it until it taps out. Let's do it.
You know, the other thing that I would do, and you got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record. And we can create millions of good-paying jobs, transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency to solar to wind and other sustainable energies.
I think the climate change issue is very complicated. And I think, did you see the Washington Post piece that they wrote where they did this long-term view? First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We could both agree on that. It's always been up and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Boom! Take that, Bernie Sanders. Climate change not happening, and we're in a cooling period. At least that's the case if you don't actually read what things say. Like the article he just put on the screen. Reading is for cuck incels, okay, who have never done a bicep curl in their lives and don't even wax their balls with a belt sander before injecting alligator libido into their rectums. I'm going to go take an ice bath and hit myself in the forehead with a frying pan. 3 sets of 30 reps, and your forehead will be tougher than a marble countertop. Goddamn right. Hey, other slogans. So actually, if you read the article, it says the planet's temperature has varied over hundreds of millions of years, but when the planet's temperature changes quickly, all the animals die. And right now, we are some of those animals. Do you get it? If we stay on this track, planet Earth will still be awesome, but only for volcanoes and certain types of slime mold. Although some of Joe's guests do qualify as slime mold. So Joe's big point here is we're in a cooling period. He says this like it's a crazy recent discovery. They found out we're in a cooling period. You see, we're still in an ice age and have been for the past 2.6 million years. And in fact, scientists have known that since at least the mid-1900s, with some people theorizing it much earlier. Joe is shocked by news that's at least 75 to 100 years old.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha.